right, looks like we've got just about everybody here. I know we've got one person who may be joining us a little late, and our final couple here will hopefully catch up with us here. Welcome to week 3. It seems hard to believe for me that we're already up to week 3 with this class, but it is what it is. Um, so the topic tonight is pretty straightforward, and I don't know that I'm going to need a ton of time to get through what I need to get through tonight. So hopefully I can get everybody out of here in pretty good time. Mainly the topic tonight is just to really dig into what the game projects are about and to talk a little bit about how the work is going to be done for the games and sort of get everybody up and running for the game projects. Over the next couple of weeks, you're going to be starting to develop the instructional design piece of the game because that's always where we want to start with something that is instructional in nature. So you'll be doing some analysis of your audience, of the problem you're trying to solve with the game, setting some learning outcomes for the game, some goals, so that when we meet next time about the game, we will be able to talk sort of more technically about the different types of games and things to think about, and we'll be looking at flowcharts and all those other sort of actual game design sorts of pieces. So the next couple of weeks will be about just kind of settling on what the games are going to be about, knowing how you're approaching the project, and taking a look at where all the work's going to get done. There is a forum activity for the next couple of weeks, and I will also go over that as well. But that is also pretty straightforward in terms of an activity. So before I jump into all of that, and it looks like now we have almost everybody here, which is great. I always like to start off the classes with giving an opportunity if anybody has questions about anything. I know last week was our first introduction to the Scratch platform, and you're either working on or maybe have completed or working towards that first mini project in Scratch. Next week will be our next Scratch class. But so any questions that I can address right now while you've got me here about anything we've covered so far? All right. Well, as always, feel free to chime in with questions if you've got them or to reach out to me. While I'm actually, since I just mentioned next week's class, just a reminder that next week, this class does not meet synchronously. So we will not be meeting on WebEx next Wednesday night. All the materials for the class will be posted on Blackboard ahead of time. I hope to have them out there maybe even by the end of the weekend, but definitely by Monday or Tuesday at the latest. Next week's work will be available, so you can start looking at that. It's going to be the next class focused on Scratch. So basically, there's going to be another couple of can you lists. I will go through all of the items in those can you lists in video form, kind of explain and demonstrate. And then there will be another mini project to follow up where you will be applying the things. But that will all be asynchronous next week because my 5:30 class, which many of you are in, which is Tuesday night, will be meeting synchronously next week. So I try to flip flop and make sure that both of those classes are not meeting in the course of the same week synchronously. All right, so I guess I'll just jump right in here and we'll see how long this takes. Like I said, I don't think it's going to take terribly long because it's mostly explanatory in nature. I will jump over here to Blackboard just to have something up on the screen and just kind of walk through. So as I said, the main focus this week is getting started on the game projects. So item number 1 this week is a page where I just talk briefly about the overview of the project, but then also list out the specific requirements. So, since you are going to be over the next couple of weeks settling on what your topic's going to be for your game, thinking about instructional goals for your game, things like that, I want to make sure that you know all of the things that are going to have to get assembled as part of the final project, just so that if you're trying to choose between two options and one of them looks like it'll fit these requirements a little better, then that might lean you more towards that option as opposed to another one. So I know I touched on this briefly the first week, but here are the actual requirements. So number one, and maybe this is obvious, but the game needs to be instructional. So obviously, games are fun to play. There's lots of great games out there that are not instructional in nature, but this is an educational technology program. We are teachers, so we are going to be focusing on making sure that these games teach in some way or support teaching in a classroom. So this implies that you have learning outcomes, just like you would for any lesson that you create or any unit that you create. So you need to have goals that, by the time the student has played this game, they will be able to, or they will know, or they will understand, something along those lines. So that's got to drive everything in the game. And that's going to be the focus over the next 2 weeks, is that instructional design piece. And then alongside that, we're doing instructional games. So the other side of it is that these do need to meet our definition of games, all four aspects. One of the challenges, I should say, probably one of the main challenges among those four is going to be the meaningfully ambiguous decisions. It can be really easy to create a game like activity that, when you really look at it, is more of like a puzzle, in that there's one solution and you're really just trying to get the students to find that one solution and complete an activity. That is not technically a game. They can be useful in a classroom. Those can be great things for reviewing topics or for really hammering, if you've got a very specific sequence that students need to learn or something like that, then those can be good activities. But the reason I want to focus on actual games is because they encourage a different kind of learning, which tends to be less about just like practice and rote memorization and that sort of activity, and more those higher order thinking skills. So where games can really shine is in those ambiguous and meaningful decisions. So rather than trying to think of a subject for the game that's just about practice or solving a puzzle, you want to think about how can you engage the students beyond that sort of rote memorization level and really get them involved in a topic. So I just want you to keep that in mind as you're narrowing in on a topic, to think about, how can I embed meaningful and ambiguous decisions into this game, ones where the students don't know what the right answer is. They don't know how the choice that they're making is going to affect the outcome of the game. So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to keep kind of coming back to that idea over and over again. When we did the game definition a couple weeks ago, this was the one that I kind of leaned on the heaviest. So as you're moving forward now, just keep thinking about that aspect of it. The rules are not going to be an issue. The competing agents, you're going to have to give some thought to that, but that's usually not an issue to solve. The end game is typically not an issue to solve. It's those meaningfully ambiguous decisions that really are going to define and help elevate these games beyond just puzzle activities. So beyond that, I mean, those are sort of. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
Uh, can you give an example of this, like in big, big idea, and So sorry. I don't know how to say that word.
Yeah, ambiguous. Yeah.
Ambiguous. Yes.
So, well, like there used to be one of the early sort of computer games for teaching was something called oh, now I'm forgetting the name of it. It was about the settling of the Western United States.
The Oregon Trail.
That's it, Oregon Trail. Thank you. So within that game, I mean, there was sort of a goal to it, which was to get over out to Oregon. But along the way, the students had to at any point like make a decision about whether they were going to stay somewhere longer in order to rest up and have more energy to move on, or whether to push on through. And at the time they make that decision, they wouldn't know whether that decision was going to necessarily result in the best outcome. You wait around longer, you might get caught in a snowstorm somewhere. If you keep pushing through, you might lose your livestock because you're pushing them too hard and they can't make the journey. So that kind of decision making where you want the students at a moment in the game to really be thinking about what are my options at this point, and based on what I think is going to be best, which is the best path to take forward. But it's not a case where you just memorize, okay, at this point in the game, you make this decision, and then the next one, you make this decision, and it's just about learning the path through the game. If there's only one way to navigate through the game to get to an end point, then those are not meaningful decisions they're having to make. So, and part of this, I think, also for educational games takes a bit of the focus off of the winning, because you want to see more of sort of evidence of the students' thought processes and their decision processes and why did they make these decisions. So you could get done with a game of Oregon Trail and maybe a team, quote unquote, lost. They didn't reach the goal, but you got to see how they thought as they made the decisions, and you can go back and discuss, well, what might have happened if you had chosen something differently here, or those sorts of things. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that like I said, the meaningful ambiguous piece, that's going to be the one that I don't want to say you're going to lose sleep over it, because you're not, but that's going to be the one where you really want to like brainstorm and come up with some creative ideas, because especially if you're working with younger kids, their sort of critical thinking skills and decision making are not going to be as developed as older students are, but you can still find ways to incorporate meaningful decision points into a game so that it just doesn't become a repetitive activity. You want them to be able to play the game multiple times and get new experiences out of each time that they play it. So all right, so then going into kind of the specifics of what you will actually be producing. One of them, and this is what we're going to be starting on over the next couple of weeks, is the instructional design plan. So this is somewhat simplified from like a full-blown instructional design that you might be doing for a course or a unit in a course, but we still want to hit the major topics of the instructional design. So you want to identify a problem that you're trying to address with the game. So a lot of times in instructional design, we talk about the discrepancy model and the innovation model. So it could be a problem where your students are just not achieving at the level you want them to under their current instruction. So you're looking to somehow, boost that instruction through a game. Or it could be that there's just a new topic that's being introduced into your curriculum that doesn't currently have instruction linked to it, and maybe a game would be a good way to introduce that. So you want to identify a problem. You're going to be talking about the need, and the need is a bit artificial in this case, because usually the need is, what are the things you need to put together in order to address this problem? we're kind of doing this project backwards because we've already decided that the thing we need is a game. So it's sort of in reverse from what we would normally do, but the need should be something like, we need an instructional game that is going to help motivate our students to X, Y, or Z, or something along those lines. You're going to do an analysis of your audience. So, who is the game being designed for? And that could be very specific. If you work in a classroom and you want to design a game very specifically for the group of students you have now, you can do that. Or you can be more generic. It could be, this is for a fourth grade, social studies class, some topic that most fourth grade social studies might study, or something like that. And the most important thing out of all of it is going to be your learning outcomes. If these are going to be instructional, they need to have an outcome or two that the students, our old students will be able to SWABAT. So by the end of this game, or after playing this game, students will be able to, and then you fill in the blank with whatever you think this game is going to help achieve. So that's the design plan, and I'm going to show you in just a little bit where that's going to go and how you're going to type that up and all that. A flow chart of gameplay, and this is something that we are going to start talking about in 2 weeks when we come back to games again. I'm going to talk both about the developing the rules and the flow chart, because they tend to go hand in hand in terms of supporting each other. So as you're trying to figure out what the rules are for the game, you're going to also be charting the game in terms of, just having a visual way to look at the way the game flows. And that's a really good error checking tool to make sure that your rules are complete. Because we're going to talk about dead ends in those flow charts. And if you find a dead end, then that means you've got to add something to your rules that will eliminate that dead end, and so on. So you'll be creating an actual flow chart of the game, and alongside that is the set of rules. And that'll just be in text form. So imagine you've opened up the box for the game, and here's the sheet of paper that's got the rules for the game. So that'll include how you set the game up. That'll include how the game gets played. It'll include information about the end game, sort of anything that the players would need to know in order to be able to play a game. Along with that, and this is not a huge piece of this, sometimes people get sort of hung up on this and worried about it, but just to add an additional piece of technology, once your rules are completed, you're going to generate some kind of a quick video that also helps to support the rules of the game. So it could be somebody just explaining the rules. It could be actually showing the gameplay, like a little example of gameplay. This would be useful, not just as a thing to include in the game, but again, in a classroom, as we know, we like to present materials in multiple modes, because some students prefer to read things, some students prefer to watch things, some students prefer to hear about things. So if you are truly going to put this game into a classroom, not only having the written set of rules, but also having a video to support that, just gives you multiple ways. So maybe you've got a bunch of groups in a classroom playing this game. Maybe they can just watch the video first before they play the game, just so that they know what they've got to do or how the game goes. So that'll be one other piece of the puzzle. Generally, that doesn't get done till pretty late in the process, because you want to make sure your rules are all basically done before you create that video. And then there's the actual, whatever is going to be needed to actually play the game. So this might be a game board, it might be cards, it might be playing pieces. But at least one element of playing the game you will be doing through Scratch, and incorporating that. So that doesn't have to be the game itself. In fact, I'm not going to say you can't do it, but I am not recommending that you actually try to build your entire game in Scratch. It can be done, but that kind of goes beyond the scope of what we can kind of do in this one semester class. So I'm not looking for you to make the whole game in Scratch, but this would be like your game needs a spinner. So rather than making a physical spinner, you create a spinner in Scratch. Or you need dice to roll, or maybe there's a deck of cards, and rather than making the cards physically, you decide that you're going to make the cards in Scratch. So not looking to program the entire game, but looking to have at least one element of the game be something that can be done interactively through the Scratch platform. And then that'll tie in the interactive technology piece that we're working on in Scratch. It'll tie in, you know, bringing the technology into the classroom through the game, and kind of pulling all of that together. So in terms of like what your project will be in the end, this sort of covers it. You will be turning in your instructional design, your flow chart, your rules, your video, and your game materials. And you know, we've got time. Like none of this is due next week, so this will be spread out over the course of the semester. But just so you have kind of a picture looking down the road at what the major parts of this project are. In terms of the next 2 weeks, now that we've seen that big picture, pull back just the next 2 weeks. All I want you to focus on is just the instructional design part. So that is going to include settling on the topic of your game. So all of you that contributed to the discussion forum, you are all throwing out 2 or 3 or 4 ideas for games. Now what you're going to be doing is looking at those, and maybe now that you have a clearer idea of where the game is headed, you can look at those ideas and try to figure out which one looks like it's going to be the best, or the one you want to work with. Maybe none of them. Maybe now looking at your 3 ideas, you're like, yeah, no, none of these are really going to work. I'm just going to come up with a totally new idea. That's fine too. So that'll obviously be one of the first things you want to do, because everything else builds off of what the game's going to be about. There's a couple of basic questions that I'm going to show you in just a minute that you'll fill in related to the choosing of your topic and so on. And then, like I said earlier, the instructional design. So there's going to be a framework. It's basically got 4 sections to it. And as you develop those 4 parts of the instructional design, you'll simply be typing them right into the wiki in Blackboard, saving all the stuff, you know, saving everything there, so that you start to put together the documentation for your game. So that's really the only goal for the next 2 weeks. You don't have to worry about the interactive piece or the programming piece. You don't have to worry about the physical components. You don't even really have to think too much yet about even what type of game you're looking to make, meaning physically, like is it a board game, is it a card game, is it a whatever. Those sorts of decisions we can really dig into in a couple of weeks. So this is really just about focusing on that instruction piece, making sure that you have a solid idea of what you are trying to teach through this game. All right. Questions so far before I jump over to the wiki, which is where you're going to be putting all of this stuff? All right. So let me jump over there. Wiki, if you don't know, wiki generally just refers to a web tool where the users can contribute. So it's like making a website, but all of you are able to add things to the website. You're able to create new pages and so on. So what I've got here in the game wiki is, first of all, there's a linked subpage just called "What is a Game?" If you ever need to remind yourself about what our description is or what our definition of a game is, I stuck that here. We're going to talk about these things to consider next time we talk about the games, but I parked that information here as well. So that's just kind of there as basic information about games. And then each of the projects has its own subpage. I'm calling everything a group, even though based off of the forum post from last week, the majority of you are planning on working by yourself. But I'm just calling everything a group, even if it's just going to be you by yourself. And before we leave here tonight, you'll know which group number you are, and if you are working in a group, who you're working with. And I'll fill that information in. But inside each of the group's pages right now, there is, first of all, just kind of actually, I'm going to leave that out because then I can zoom in here and we can still see everything. So initially, there's just sort of some basic overview questions. Members, if it's just you, all you got to do is just put your name there. If you are working in a group, then you would list all the people in your group here. And in the past, groups have also used this as a place to like put in, contact information for the people in the group. So if you need to email each other or text each other or something like that, that you've got a place here where you can go and put that information. So that's just who's doing the project. Then these three questions, the possible topics, there what you can do is just copy and paste the information you put into the forum last week, just so you have it here for reference. Then your final topic choice, once you settle on it, you'll just enter what that final topic is. And as I say, just give me a brief explanation of what led you to choose that topic over the others, whatever that may be. Just throw that in here too. And this last one, you don't even really need to worry too much about this last one right now because you probably don't know too much about the actual game you're going to create yet. But as you start building the game and as you start developing ideas of what kind of game, just add in a brief description here of the game. Think of this maybe as like, when you pick up a game in the store and you look on the back, it gives you like the little one paragraph blurb that tries to let you know like how exciting the game is and what you're going to do in the game. So you could kind of think of this as like the advertising brief for your game. But if you don't have a real clear idea right now, don't worry about filling anything in there yet. We'll get there. So this homepage is really just that basic information: who's in the game group and what is the topic for the game. Then every group has these sub pages, and one of them is your instructional design. And when you click on that, this is really the main page. By the time you're done with your project, essentially your entire game will be contained on this page in one form or another. Initially, all we're worried about is these first four questions. This is your instructional design piece. So as I said, you're going to identify the problem you're trying to address, the need, which is what you need in order to solve that problem. And that's going to be, we need a game that. The audience, who are you developing the game for? As much information as you can give that you think would impact how you make the game. And then finally, the learning goal or goals. Every game should have at least one goal, maybe two. I'd be hard pressed to find a game that really truly has more than two learning goals or learning outcomes. If you really think you've got a third, then you feel free to put in a third. But generally speaking, games tend to be pretty focused on one or maybe two main outcomes that they want you to achieve. So you will just be filling in these four things over the next couple of weeks. What else is on the page? The game elements, which we will talk about next time. This has to do more with what kind of a game is it and so on. Then there's going to be a place here where eventually you'll put a link to your flowchart or a copy of your flowchart. There's a place where you will eventually put your rules or a link to your rules. And there's a place where you will put in information about the game materials, either descriptions of the materials or pictures of the materials or whatever. and finally a place to provide a link to that rules video that you will eventually be creating. So this page for each group is really where your game is going to be housed. This is the main thing you will be turning in. This is where you will be putting your information. This is, where decisions will be made and so on. So you will get very familiar with this platform and so on. Editing it is super easy. All of you have the permission to edit the wiki in terms of the Blackboard platform. What you will see, and it might look a little different for you, but I'm going to go into editing mode here. You will see something like this button here that says Edit Wiki Content. And really on any page that you're on, to change what's on that page, you just click that button, and then you will have the full editor where you can add in and type in and put in images and links and all of that. And then the only thing I caution on is to definitely make sure that you hit the save button or submit button, because one thing I've learned about the Blackboard wiki platform is that it will not ask you, if you have not saved work you've done and you go to leave the page, it will not warn you. It will not say, you have unsaved changes. Do you want to save them now? It'll just let you go. And more than once, I've edited a wiki page and then come back later and discovered that I never hit submit and had to sort of rebuild things. So those, in terms of editing your pages, that's really all you need, is just the edit button. And then once you've done editing, if I go into editing here, it'll give me the text editor. And then right down here at the bottom is the submit button. And I would just make sure once I've typed in or put in whatever I've got to put in, that I would hit that submit button and go on. All right, I'm going to cancel for now because I didn't make any edits. But that's where the work is going to go. So again, for this week, the focus is really just on the two topic questions. What were your possible topics and which one did you end up with and why? And then in the instructional design, working through these first 4 questions to get a handle on what you want this game to achieve instructionally. And then that'll set the stage in 2 weeks for us to start talking about the different types of games and how they work and things to think about along those lines. All right. Any questions on that piece of it, on the wiki piece? The wiki will remain in week 3 for the remainder of the course. I may put links back to it in future weeks so that it's easy to get back here. But just remember that week 3 is where the wiki lives. So anytime you're doing future work on it and need to get back to it, just know that that's where you would go to get into this. All right. So the final bit in terms of the games for tonight is to talk about the game groups and sort of the game assignments in terms of who's which number and so on. So as I said, just based off of what everyone put into the forum last week, the majority of you, 7 or 8 or 9 of you or something, all indicated that you wanted to work on your own. And that is perfectly okay. That's great. You've now seen the scope of what the work's going to be, and you can just kind of be off and running. So then that left, there were, I think, 6 students that were not accounted for in the individual side of things. One group of those, I believe, if my information is still correct, and since you're all here, I can just ask this. So Stephanie and Abigail and Delaney, the 3 of you are still planning to work together. Is that correct? All right. I see a thumbs up from Abby.
Yes.
So, okay. So, so I will keep the 3 of you as a group. It sounds like you've probably already had some discussions about possible topics and so on. So, really, my questions boils down to just three of you, and you know, I'll just sort of lay out the situation, which is there are three of you remaining who are not accounted for in those other groupings. At least from what I could see in terms of game topics, there was not really any overlap among the three of you. And the three of you that I'm talking to would be Alana and Tate and Jesse. So I didn't really see any overlap, any obvious overlap in possible game topics. So we can go a couple routes with this. We could, if the three of you are still interested in definitely working in a group, um, then the three of you, I think, would need to have some kind of a discussion about finding a common ground or finding a topic for a game that you all three could work together on. Or sort of knowing what we know now, would the three of you be more interested in just working on your own as opposed to as a group? Typically in the past, I've had a lot more students interested in group work. And so we've had a whole range of topics and everything. And I was able to sort of put together topics that were similar. But with this class, you know, I don't want to force a group together if there's really no common ground, and that's just going to make things more difficult. Um, but if it's more important for the three of you to be working together, um, and you think you can find a common topic, then we can go that route too. So I guess I'm kind of just looking for input from the three of you on what your thoughts may be.
I was planning to work alone. I might have put that in the wrong one though, but that was my
Okay.
idea at least.
Did you just put in the submission? Because
I think I might have. It was in a different
okay.
document.
Okay, I may not have seen yours, which is why I still had you as sort of question mark. So, but you would prefer to be working on your own.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. So then, I mean, Alana and Jesse, I guess the question then is for the two of you.
I'm okay with working on my own.
You are, okay?
Yeah.
Jesse, is that okay with you as well? I'm not sure. Jesse may be away from the computer at the moment. Okay. Well, I'll go forward with that then, and I'll if I have a chance to touch base with Jesse, I'll do that. So what I will do, and let me go in, and I'm going to edit this right now in the wiki so that everybody knows what their number is. So I'll start with the three that are working together. So that's Stephanie, Abby, and Delaney. So the three of you will be group one. And then honestly, beyond that, since everyone is sort of individual, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go in the order that I had sort of numbered things off here. So James, you are going to be group two or project two. Let's see, Carly is group three or project three. Megan is project number four. Let's see, who did I have for five? Oh, Jenny. Jenny will be project five. Project six is Claude. Project seven is Stephen. Project eight, where is it? Project eight is Kaylee. Project 9 is Jess. All right, and then Project 10 will be Tate. Project 11 will be Alana. And then I'll just put Jesse down for 12. All right, so that just means now each of you has a homepage here for you to start putting your information in on. The one thing I will caution, not that this has ever been an issue and you are all, confident enough with technology, but there's no way for me to limit your ability to edit the wiki to just your pages. So the one thing about a wiki, just like Wikipedia, is anyone can edit anything. So just be really careful when you are editing your page. Make sure you're on your page and not somebody else's page, just so that you're not putting information in the wrong place. And also, don't edit this home page. That'll be for me to take care of, and so on. All right, good. So we've got that taken care of. Anything else at this point related to the game project and kind of the first steps that you will be taking with that project over the course of the next couple of weeks? All right, so pick a topic, start on the instructional design. That's really kind of it in terms of the expectations for 2 weeks from now. All right, so I can actually start to finish up here because there's really only one other activity for the next couple of weeks, and that is, I'm calling it a forum because it's using the discussion forum platform in Blackboard, but really the activity is designed to be more of like a glossary type of an activity. So this is not going to be meant to be a discussion. So all you're going to be responsible for this week is just your post. You do not need to be doing responses to other people's posts. So the idea behind this forum is I just want to build up kind of a resource list of I don't know, research and articles and things like that online that relate to the topic of instructional gaming and educational gaming. So there's a ton out there. Some of it's research based, some of it is more just informational. But and I'm not really looking for any specific aspect of instructional gaming. So if there's a particular topic that you want to go out and search an article on, you can try to look for something specific, or you can just kind of generally search, see what kind of articles you come across, and if one looks interesting to you, then you can use that. So what I've provided is, and actually let me back out here a little bit, is just to kind of kick off your thinking about what is happening in the world of instructional gaming in the research world. Is I've given a link here to an article, a research article that is really more of an overview or a review of other work that is currently being done in the world of educational gaming. So this paper is not really looking to present anything new. What they were doing was kind of going through and summarizing some of the main current thinking and the main directions of research in the topic of instructional games. So this would be just something to kind of look through, and it might get you thinking about a particular kind of article or research you might look for. There is, at the end, they do have a list of references for this article. So there might be some things that they used as references where if you can find the original, you could use that as what you're focusing on this week, but you don't have to. This is more just to kind of set the stage and to get you thinking about what kind of work is being done in the world of instructional gaming. But then your job is going to be to, like I said, locate a resource online. I want these to be something that can be linked to, so they should be online resources. And your post is simply going to be a link to the material, whatever you found, and then just a brief summary of the article, no more than a paragraph. Just so if somebody thinks this might be something they want to go check out, that they can just read your quick summary and say, oh yeah, that definitely sounds like something I want to go look at. And then they can click on the link and they can go take a look at it. So you don't need to, go through every point that the article makes or that the researchers made. You don't have to discuss their outcomes or their, whatever the research entailed. Just quick thumbnail overview of what the article is or what the research paper was about, just so that anybody visiting your post can know whether they want to follow the link and go see more. So I put the directions here again because Blackboard does not show you the instructions for forums until you create a thread. So this will give you the full picture, but then in the actual forum itself, just to kick things off, I did a post just to model what I'm kind of looking for. So this would be sort of like what you would be looking to do. And as you can see, I provided a link to the article, and then I provided just like 2 or 3 sentences, just a summary of what the article is about, or what, in this case, it's a website. And just put my name at the end of the post, just in case somebody wants to follow up. Although I know your name gets posted on the posts anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But this is really all I'm looking for. And the idea then is that within the forum as a whole, because you're going to put the title of the articles in as the title of the post, people will be able to look down through all those article titles. And if you see something that looks like it might be interesting, something you want to learn more about, you can go into that person's thread, click on the link, and this will just kind of build a collection of resources that you can refer back to as you work on building these games throughout the course. So mine is a sample, but it is also an actual material that's being linked to, but that'll give you an idea of what I'm looking for. So all you've got to do is find something, post about it. And like I said, my intent with this is not that this is a discussion forum. So you do not need to come back and respond to other people's articles. This is just going to kind of sit here for the duration of the course as a reference that we can come back to and use as like a little mini lending library almost of materials about instructional games. All right. So honestly, timing wise, this forum is really the only thing that's really sort of due next week. The work on your game, you really have 2 weeks to work on that because we're not going to get back to the game projects until 2 weeks from now. So you've got time on that front. So really not a lot in the way of homework over the course of this next week, or even next couple of weeks. But that's intentional because I also want to give you time to be working through the Scratch mini projects and getting comfortable with Scratch and all of that. So yeah, so everything I just went through is all here on the overview page for week 3. The various things you're going to work through over the next couple of weeks, what is actually due. Make sure you're staying up to date with previous work. The mini project number 1 from Scratch is technically due next week when we get to mini project number 2. So you do still have some time to finish that up. There was a discussion forum from last week. If you haven't yet contributed to that, try to get that caught up on that as well. But that's really the overview for the week. Questions, concerns?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hi. I love Scratch. I think the coding programming it's great, but it is challenging at the beginning. So I got some things done, but it is challenging, to get it done as the way you want it here. So I'm gonna give it a try again tomorrow
Okay.
and see if I can finish all the instructions you gave. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, you still have another week to complete that. So there's no rush on that. And if you run into specific issues, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I can help you guide through things as well. Plus, you do have, remember, I did post the sample of the project
Yeah.
there, so you
Yes.
can always also take a look at that and look inside it and kind of see what it looked like for me, and that might also help you answer any questions you may have.
Okay. One more thing. The working by yourself or in a group. How are you going to set up a group, a small group? You're going to pick a group, some people for a group, or
Well, I think you weren't in the room. We just went through all of that.
uh-huh.
As everything worked out, there were only potentially 3 of you that might be working together in a group, but there really wasn't any overlap between topics for the 3 of you.
Mm-hmm.
And one was gonna, as it turns out, was gonna be working on their own anyway. So actually, I was gonna, since you're here now, maybe once everyone goes, if you can just hang out for a second,
Okay.
and then I can just catch you up on sort of where we ended up with all of that, and we can just talk about that. So,
Okay.
all right,
Yeah.
okay. Other questions before we head on out? Yeah, Jenny, do you have your hand up there?
Yes, I have a question. For the game, do you have like somebody finished before, so we know what are we looking for, or is it still too early?
Yeah, I mean, I have previous projects. One of the issues in the last 3 years, because this class hasn't been being taught on the ground on campus, it used to be at the end of the class I actually had the physical games. And in fact, when I took over teaching this class, the previous teacher gave me 2 gigantic shopping bags full of games that students had created before. Since it's moved kind of more into this online digital platform, I don't necessarily have those physical components, but I absolutely can go back and pull out examples of, the rules that they created, the flow charts they created, the kinds of materials that they made for their games, and things like that. So yeah, maybe for next time, since next time we'll be talking more about the physical aspects of the game, I'll try to put together something where there's kind of a list of resources of what types of games have been done in the past, and maybe some materials associated with them, just so you can kind of see what those were about.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm looking for, so I can
Oh,
see what I can do.
yep, sounds good.
Mhm.
I'll try to put that together for 2 weeks from now. So,
Okay.
all right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Well, one final reminder, there is no online class next Wednesday. All the materials will be posted in Blackboard. It will be about Scratch. So, very much like what we did last week, just moving into a couple of the other categories of programming blocks. There will be another mini project to work on. And then we will be back together again as a group here in WebEx in 2 weeks to really start digging into the creating of the games and the rules and the flow charts and all of that good stuff. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Have a great week. I will see you in 2 weeks, unless I see you next week in 5:30. And just let me know if you've got questions or concerns over the next couple of weeks. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You.